you're built for more. And whatever you're already doing, you're still built for more. Even if you're very successful and doing well in your career and you love your job or you love your profession, there's still more for you. So you still got to keep like growing and learning.
So success leaves clues, and success is simple. It's not easy, but like you said, we can watch what people before us have done and we can choose, and I've done that from a young age. I realize that now looking back as well. I just tried to watch what successful people do and learn from that.
There's, let me interject one thing here. There's Nipsey Hussle, the rapper that has passed away. I listen to like little clips of him all the time. And that's one of my favorite clips of him is he steals wisdom is what he said. He will listen to like different people that have like gone in front of him or done something that he respects or whatever. And he just kind of takes the little pieces that he can apply. And I think that's so true for any industry. Like if you see the people that have gone before you and have had success and they're doing the things that you can see yourself doing at some point, you got to take the bits and pieces that they do well and try to like implement them your own way.
My advice to someone would be make sure that you know what your goals are and break it down to how you're going to achieve that, not monthly and then weekly and then what you need to do daily to reach those goals.
Yep.
Because
The Mark Big Show.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Mark Big Show. Super excited about my guest today. I think she's going to bring a ton of value to all of you that have the chance to listen to this podcast. Before we get started and introduce her, I want to say please, please, please like, share, and subscribe to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you catch this podcast at. That would help us and means the world to me and our team here to try to grow the podcast. And like I said before, we're going to try to continue to bring as much value to you as we can with all kinds of different industry leaders and experts in different fields and just different thought processes and mindsets for people so that we can add as much value to you as we can. And that's the ultimate goal of this podcast is to do that. So I'm super excited to welcome Nikki Adams to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
thanks for having me.
So Nikki is a local real estate expert here in the Bowling Green market. And I've had the pleasure of working with Nikki on a professional standpoint for probably 7-8 years now, something like that. I've been on my own for 5, so it's been at least 7, I think, maybe. And I've had the pleasure of watching her grow in her business and just watching it flourish and her family grow and all those things. So I respect her a lot, both personally and professionally. So really excited to have you here and let you get the opportunity to kind of share your story and just give your insights on what growth looks like from a business and family standpoint and just see what the people can glean from your story and kind of what you're about. So why don't you give the people that do check this out, like the 5-minute, 10,000-foot view of your life, kind of where you started, where you grew up, kind of how you got into real estate, just kind of what everything looks like for you, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, well, again, thanks for having me. I have a lot of respect for you as well. So,
Thank
so I grew up in Russell County, very small town, not a lot to do there, not a lot of opportunities. Grew up with a single mama and very humble beginnings. So by a very young age, I knew and noticed and realized that if I wanted to be successful, then it was really up to me to make that happen. So I got a job when I was 14 at a gas station. I don't think they knew I was 14. They didn't ask. I didn't tell.
Hey, if they don't ask you, you got to tell them.
Right. So I got my first job in a gas station, and I never stopped working after that. So I always made sure to have a job and try to save money and, be able to set goals and try to achieve them by young ages.
Do you think was that pushed down from your mother, or do you think that was just kind of something that you saw yourself, like, hey, I am in a single family house or single parent household, and I see what the struggles are and I see how tough it is to make it. So like just innately you had that, or was that something that was kind of pushed down from her?
I seen my mom struggle, and my mom, she was a very hard worker, and then she was in a bad car accident, and so that caused her to not be able to work anymore.
Gotcha.
And then she was on government assistance, and that was really hard for her mentally and physically.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
And so I wanted to step up and help, and when I realized, hey, I can get a job and I can bring in an income, it enticed me and it motivated me.
Nice.
And I think, looking back now, at the time I didn't realize, I had some very hard things happen in my life, but I realize now that that's what instilled that drive and that passion into me.
What makes you who you are now.
Yeah,
that makes perfect sense.
Definitely. So graduated with honors from school and went to college at Lindsey Wilson.
Nice.
Got a bachelor's in business there. And then realized very quickly I had a bachelor's in business, and in Russell County, the best job offer I had was for $8 an hour working at a bank. And I said, okay.
Okay.
then my first child was born. She was 3 months old, and my mom passed away, and so I got custody of my little sister, who was 13. She was 10 years younger than me.
Wow.
So I realized that I didn't want to raise my family in that small town. Not that it wasn't a great place to live, but there was just limited opportunities.
Well, you also knew that you could kind of see there was more for you, probably outside of those four walls, so to speak, that there was bigger opportunities to help raise your now family at that point.
Yeah.
How old were you when your mom passed away?
I was 23.
23. So that's one of the things that I kind of share in common with you, is losing a parent at an early age. My dad was 46 when he passed away, and I was 19. Or about to be 19 when he passed away. And I truly think that one big thing in my life is kind of what's shaped, not the most of who I am, but like it's really one of the key moments in my life that's really shaped how I've been able to approach the world as an adult. Because, and for a long time, I really took, like I had a really good childhood. My parents were together. They both worked and provided for us. We were not wealthy by any means. They both worked at Kroger, a grocery store here in town. But we never hurt for anything. You know what I mean? We were very fortunate. Parents that loved us. All the, I would say cliche things. They're not so cliche anymore. But, all the things that you would want as a child growing up, right? And so I always took that for a little bit as a punishment. Like, I'm getting punished by the world because I had it so good for so long, right? But once I shifted my mind out of that kind of victim mentality, so to speak, it really allowed me to see the world in a different way. So I'm interested to hear if you feel similar to that, having gone through that, because that's a hard pill to swallow for anyone, especially at a young age, especially if you were close with your mom, because it was a single family house or single parent household, all those things. Do you think that's kind of helped shape you into the woman you are today?
Definitely. My mom always believed in me, and she always was my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
And so losing her was the hardest thing. Yeah. I mean, I literally, my body, and I'm sure you can relate with this, my soul literally hurt when I lost my mom.
That's a different type of pain.
It is. And, but also God knows what he's doing. And I honestly think that's why, I was out of college, so it's not like I was super young, but having a child at 23 is still pretty young.
Absolutely.
And I know for a fact that that's why God blessed me with my daughter.
That's awesome.
And so then I had something else to focus on, and it's okay, I can't lose sight of the end goal, because I always promised my mom, hey, we're gonna get out of this situation, and I'm gonna make it. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but
I'm gonna figure it out.
We're gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna make it. And it felt really good. My first job after college was working at a car lot, and to be,
what were you doing there? Selling?
Sales, yeah.
Nice.
And I was the top salesperson there. So by 21, I'm making $60,000 a year. Well, nice. I was able to help my mom a lot, and that was a great feeling.
Of course.
And just to keep climbing that ladder, that was the goal, to keep just doing better and
working your way forward, so to speak.
Right, right. So I've definitely had some setbacks, but there was a lot to learn from them. And I feel like it definitely, to answer your question, accelerated my growth, because it just made me want to go harder.
Yeah. It gives you honestly kind of a dual reason. You've got a new child that that child is solely relying on you and no one else.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's kind of my mom's not here for me to honor her in person, but I still have to honor her name and, that sort of thing. Because that really drives me even to this day. Because I can't call my dad on the phone. It's what did I do today that, he would be proud of? Right. I got to make sure that I'm doing something that I feel honors his name. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's kind of that dual factor for you. So I bet that's one thing definitely that's kind of accelerated your growth, like you said. 23, where do you go from there?
So I chose to move to Bowling Green.
Mm-hmm.
I knew a change had to be made.
Sure.
I did a lot of praying and prayers, and it just kept leading me to the Bowling Green area.
Gotcha.
So moved to Bowling Green and was literally driving around interviewing daycares, and daycare in Bowling Green prices. I don't know if anyone's checked out daycare prices, but they've never been kind. So driving around, and the prices were so much for daycare that I was literally praying in tears, how I've got these job interviews, but they're not enough. How am I going to
make this work?
How am I going to pay for daycare and have someone to watch my child because my mom was my childcare. She kept
for sure
my daughter while I worked, So anyways, I ended up in Bowling Green, and just one step after another kept leading me in the right place. I ended up getting on at a local bank, mm-hmm. and moving up the ladder there. I started out as a banker,
sure.
Moved up to assistant manager, which was a sales and service coordinator.
Nice.
And I had some great managers and great leaders there, and I just tried to watch what successful people do and learn from that.
There's let me interject one thing here. There's Nipsey Hussle, the rapper that has passed away. I listen to like little clips of him all the time, and that's one of my favorite clips of him. Is he steals wisdom, is what he said. He will listen to like different people that have like gone in front of him or done something that he respects or whatever, and he just kind of takes the little pieces that he can apply. And I think that's so true for any industry. Like if you see the people that have gone before you and have had success and they're doing the things that you can see yourself doing at some point, you got to take the bits and pieces that they do well and try to like implement them your own way, right? And so I think that's just I guess a key way that a lot of people continue to sharpen their saw, so to speak, because we all have different skill sets and traits. But like if you can see the people that are kind of in front of you at that moment and what they do well and what they don't do well, it's kind of like walking behind somebody that steps on a landmine. If you take the same path, you're going to step on the same landmine, right? Like if you see a mistake that's made, you course correct. But if you see something that somebody's doing that's positive and uplifting and does them well in that industry, then you can kind of take that and make it your own.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. So success leaves clues, and success is simple. It's not easy, but like you said, we can watch what people before us have done, and we can choose, and I've done that from a young age. I realize that now looking back as well. When you're in it, I would say I was in survival mode some of my childhood, but I would look around me and say, I never want to be in that position. How can I prevent that from happening? And so I tried to learn without having to learn the hard way.
Do you think that's innate? Because I feel like so many people that grow up in, even if it's not a bad environment, even if it's just not a great environment, they just see whatever it is that they were raised in, and that's all that they know. So like, do you think that's innate? Like, do you think you were kind of born with that? Like, I see this and I respect this because this is my mother and she worked her tail off, but like, I want to do better for myself and my future family. Like, do you think that's just innate, or do you think that's a learned trait, or what do you think?
I think it's definitely, I can't say that it's not learned, because I think our environment does play a key role. Maybe if I grew up in a very different household, maybe I wouldn't have been so aware of what was going on around me.
That's a good point.
Or wouldn't be asking the questions like, how did these people get in these positions that they're in?
Right.
How are people allowing their life to go this way and not doing anything about it?
Right.
And not saying my mom had a choice, but I'm just saying mindset is everything. And so
I agree with that.
For me, yes, I think that some of it is innate, and I think some of it is the environment you're brought up in. I think everything that I went through molded me to have these traits that have helped me survive and helped me thrive and helped me, but it's all a choice, because I grew up in the same household as my sister, and we're very different, and so you have to look at what you go through and say, am I going to let this make me, or am I going to let this break me?
Yeah.
And so I
respect that so much, because like I said, so many people, I feel like they get to the point where they do have a decision to make and they can do something about it, but they just choose not to. And it's so frustrating, because I see so much opportunity in the world for so many different people, regardless of what industry they're in or what their strengths or weaknesses are. I think opportunities now are more abundant than they ever have been. Mm-hmm. Like, I think when our parents were being raised, it was a lot harder to like figure something else out aside from the norm, like the 9 to 5, so to speak. And there's nothing wrong with that by any means, but there's just more opportunity now. And I feel like so many people just don't take the time to like try to look at themselves like in the mirror and just say, hey, I can do this. I'm built for this. I can learn this skill or learn this trade or learn this trade or whatever the case may be, and just better their situation. Not that they're going to be Bill Gates, but like they could, go on a vacation with their family because they did that, or they can, just up their life just a little bit. But I feel like so many people just stay stuck in that one little spot and don't see the brighter picture. You know what I mean? And that's what I like. That's another thing that I try to encourage through this whole podcast, and people that come in contact with me is like, you're built for more. And whatever you're already doing, you're still built for more. Even if you're very successful and doing well in your career and you love your job or you love your profession, there's still more for you. So you still got to keep like growing and learning and stuff like that. And I just feel like so many people just stay in that same spot and don't. It's not that they don't want it. I think a lot of people just don't know how to do it.
Right.
Right. And so that's kind of the barrier. Since it's kind of like not in front of me and like easily given to me how to do it, I'm just going to leave it alone. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I would think that's one strength that I do have is I have that Mamba mentality, and it's just inbred in me. Like continuous improvement is something that I'm always focused on. If I do something, I'm always saying, well, how can I do that better? How can I perfect this or just improve it some. I'm not looking for perfection because that'll paralyze you. But you know what I mean? Just there's always ways to make things better, whether it's
even if you're already successful.
Exactly.
Like people that are already achieving the goals that they set 4 and 5, 10 years ago. Like I'm sure you look up now, probably at some point, if you really stopped and thought about it, like I can't imagine myself being here 10 years ago or 5 years ago even, But honestly, like to your point, when I see like your name on the schedule and you're going to come in, I'm like, all right, I got to be on my P's and Q's here because she's sharp. She's always ready. She's got good questions. Like I'll be like, all right, she's ready. I got to make sure that I'm ready so that I can advise you properly. You know what I mean? So just had to throw that in there.
Well, I appreciate that
100%.
because I don't always feel like I'm the most prepared. But
I respect that a lot about you, to be honest with you. And I think that's, just from the conversations we've had and the things that I do know about you, like I feel like that's one of the key things that's probably led you to this point. Like the drive when you're in a room, like you feel it. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to make everybody in the room like level up. You know what I mean? And I respect that so much because I think that energy is contagious, just like the negative energy is contagious. But I think the world needs more of that. When did you first get into real estate or have the thought about real estate, selling real estate, buying real estate, whatever?
Okay, so I was at the bank and I was sales and service coordinator, which was assistant manager.
Mm-hmm.
That meant I was...
How old were you then? Or what year was that? What age? I don't know how comfortable you are saying your age. Whatever.
I don't mind to say
when
my
was
age.
That?
I'm good with it. So I was probably around 26, 27 at this point. So I was working at the bank and we were having quarterly meetings, and this was the most structured job I had, right?
Sure.
We're actually having meetings and talking about goals. And so my manager asked me to come in and speak about what my goals were.
Okay.
And I went in there and I was probably making $30,000 a year now at this point, with bonuses. And I was the top sales, we had goals as far as how many loans the company wanted
Sure.
to bring in and all of that. And we were killing it. We were crushing it, and so we would win trips and all this stuff. And that was great, but I wanted to level up that income. And
Sure.
I said, so I went in and I'm all excited. And I'm like, my goal is to make $60,000 a year. What position do I need to apply for that? And he started laughing and not in like
That's what I was about to say. What kind of laugh was that?
No, it was definitely like I appreciate, like you can totally do that, but not here.
Got
like
it.
Pretty much I would have to take his position and there were
Gotcha.
so many people in line in this company.
Right.
He basically told me, and he was very honest with me, and this was honestly my favorite manager that I've ever had. And
you can always appreciate honesty even if you don't want to hear it.
Yes, but he's a great leader and a wonderful manager. And so he wasn't doing it to say, oh, you can't
Good.
do that.
I was hoping not.
No, not at all. I would have put him in his place. But,
that's why I was curious what kind of laugh that was.
No, but he was just honest, and he said, I'll just be honest with you. There's not that type of growth here because
Sure.
the way the ladder, is structured.
It's just how it works.
Yeah. So I knew at that moment, I was like, okay, well, I'm either going to have to get out of here and do something else. And so I made the decision, I'm either going to go back to school and get my master's and become a teacher so I can have summers off with my kid,
Okay.
or I'm going to go into real estate. And
What had the idea for real estate? Like it just popped in your head, or you had a friend or a mentor or something that did it? Like what even spurred that?
I think it's a God thing,
Gotcha.
honestly. So my aunt had been in real estate,
Gotcha.
and I saw her become successful. My entire family had grown up very, very humble beginnings, very
Sure.
poor. And so to see, my aunt living this very successful life and,
Sure.
and she did that through owning her own business. So I knew I wanted to own my own business. I knew I wanted to help people. Well, ironically, at this time, my now husband and I had just bought our first home.
Nice.
And so when we went through that process, it felt like everyone we called to talk to about buying a home, they were basically like, well, if you're not pre-approved, you can't put an offer in. And if you don't like this house, then I don't, they just kept trying to, felt very salesy. It felt
They were
very,
putting barriers in front of you almost.
yeah, but not solutions. They were putting
Yeah.
problems in front of me.
Yep.
Like it was almost like they were only there to be door openers and to
Sure.
sell me something.
Okay.
And it's like, this is the largest investment we're ever going to make. And I felt like I needed someone that was going to have my best interest at heart and to hold my hand. And at that time, I did not know I called several realtors,
Sure.
and it felt the same with each of them. And I said, you know what? It seems like there is a need for someone who's actually going to hold a buyer's hand, a first-time home buyer who's never done this before, and tell them this is every step we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we keep you protected.
And I'm going to walk alongside you in that process.
And walk alongside you, and then you can focus on work and family and ball or whatever you have
Right.
going on, and I'll focus on the real estate transaction to keep your largest investment protected.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think to kind of mirror that in the industry that I'm in, it's the same concept. So many people that do what I do, they just want you in and out, whether it's from the tax planning side or from the investment side. They just want you in and out. They want to know how much they can charge you, what the fees are, what they make off of whatever it is that you do. Come in, I'll tell you what to do, get out of my face, pay me or pay the lady at the front, and get out the door. And so what I figured out, and I really truly learned this from the guy that I used to work for, Ron Studel, and he's been on the podcast before too. But it's all about people. And regardless of what sales industry you're in, at the end of the day, it's all about the relationships you forge with the people that you come in contact with. And so I've taken that to heart. I've been doing this now for 10 years, and I will tell you and everyone that hears this, and I would assume you would echo the same. The people that create the best relationships and the people that work with their clients in a way that they feel like their hand's being held through a big process. The equivalent to like buying a home in your industry for me is probably retirement. So people they're to the point where they've got whatever they've got saved up, they're ready to quit their job, and they're going into retirement. They're scared to death. Like they're literally scared to death. They've worked their whole life. They know nothing different. And all they know is I've got whatever this amount of money is, and I've got my Social Security, and if they have a pension, if they've been working at a place like that, so now what? And they're scared to death. So when they come in my office and they feel like, I can take a deep breath, regardless of what the numbers are, they can take a deep breath because they know that I care and that I'm going to walk alongside them, hold their hand through that. It puts them at ease. Mm-hmm. And that's like the biggest reward, at least for me, is seeing those people come in freaked out. And a lot of tax clients are like that too. They're like scared to death. I don't know if I'm going to owe, if I'm going to get money back, if I'm going to owe more than I have in my bank account, like what that looks like. And so when they leave with their mind at ease, that's the best thing ever. And it's the best thing as far as business growth for me, because, and I would assume, and you can speak to this too, the best the best marketing for me is referrals. If someone like you goes and tells a friend or a coworker or a family member, I can trust that person with my money, or I can trust that person to help me buy a home. That's the best marketing advertising you can get. So that's why I think it all goes back to the relationships. And I'm sorry to get on a tangent there, but so it sounds like you felt that need not being met after calling multiple people. So I could see the wheels spinning up there like, all right, well, if no one is going to do this, then Nikki, can do this.
Yeah, because I was already in sales. I was already in customer service. Yeah. My passion is helping people. That's what I love doing. I love being a mom. I love helping people. And being an agent's a lot like being a parent. You're helping them through the hardest times of their life.
Because they don't know what to do.
Right. So yeah, building those relationships is definitely important, and finding out what's important to that person. And no one took the time to do that. So we actually went straight to a builder, bought a new construction. We thought, oh, this is going to be risk-free. It's new construction. What can go wrong? And
that's funny.
Yeah, didn't have a home inspection because the builder said,
that's good.
We have inspections. He's talking about the city inspections, which is not the same thing.
Absolutely not.
And so, yeah. And then we get in and we have all these things that's wrong with this new construction house. And we're like,
freaking out.
Yeah, I know. Just like we spent so much money. And you know that feeling when you spend a lot of money and then you feel like you didn't get the value out of it. And so I wanted to bring that value to the people to let them know, even if everything isn't perfect during this process, we're going to make sure it's, safe, profitable, and secure for you, because it is a large investment.
It is. And like you said before, it's, for most people, it's the largest investment that they do make.
Yeah.
So having somebody that they can trust and actually lean on, I'm sure has probably been the key to your growth in the industry over time. So how long have you been doing real estate now?
8 years.
8 years. Mm-hmm. So what would you say is, if you could tell either a new agent, if you could tell somebody that's 1 or 2 years in, what do you think has been the key to your growth and success in real estate? Now, let me just say, Nikki's very humble, but Nikki does very well, and it's because of her hard work and dedication to her clients. So I'll be the first one to tell you that, because I know she's not going to tell you. But what do you think has been the key to your growth?
The key to my growth would be working very hard, never saying something isn't my job. When you take on the role of somebody's fiduciary, as you know,
right,
you have to go above and beyond.
Absolutely.
And you also have to create a business model and systems, because one thing I'll tell you about me, I have this, Mamba mentality also comes the other side of that. That sounds really attractive, but the other side of that is, I don't know if you've ever seen the hashtags never satisfied.
Yeah.
But when you are that driven, sometimes it's like, it doesn't matter so for me, when, I never even look at my numbers. I never even know where I rank on the list. Other people tell me how great I'm doing, which I'm doing better about that because you have to know your numbers. The path is in the math. And,
Sure.
and so I've realized that. So that's what I think my advice to someone would be: make sure that you know what your goals are and break it down to how you're going to achieve that, not, monthly and then weekly, and then what you need to do daily to reach those goals.
Yeah.
Because that never satisfied mentality, I would be selling millions and have all these closings, and I'm like, okay, now what's next? Now what's next? Like, it doesn't matter what I did yesterday. It matters what I'm doing today.
It's a blessing and a curse, honestly,
It is.
because I'm sure it can drive your husband nuts, because I can think about many arguments that I've had about, like, hey, you just closed this or you did well there. But I'm like, yeah, but like, it matters, but it doesn't. I serve that person. I'm going to continue to serve them. But like, who else can I go find and help them out too?
Right.
And I think going forward, what do you think is going to change in the real estate industry? Like, what do you think? Well, before I go there, what do you think separates, I guess, like your top tier agents like yourself from people that just kind of struggle to get by in real estate? They're doing the best they can in their minds. What do you think is kind of the key separator?
I think drive has a lot to do with it,
Sure.
but I also think putting the action behind the words. So I feel like in our industry, it's a very easy access industry. You
Sure.
go to a class for 6 weeks and you take a test and you're a realtor. It's very easy entry. So you have a lot of people that get into it because they just want to make money.
Sure.
And they think it's going to be easy and they're just going to open doors and show pretty houses. And
It's not.
It's not.
And being
It's not.
self-employed in general, whether it's any type of sales, real estate related, tax and advising like I do, like, you get kicked in the teeth a lot too.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the part that a lot of people don't see, because there's a lot of times where you've done everything that you can do for a client, and I'm sure you can echo this too, and you feel like you've put the best possible plan in front of them. You've got this lead that you're going to help, and they're just like, I don't want to do that, or I pick somebody else, or whatever the case may be. That's a tough feeling to swallow for a lot of people.
The toughest for me in that aspect is that, so I can do a great job for a client. I can go in and I can make it, they will brag, they will
Sure.
refer people to us, and they will tell us what a great job we did. We will, put out every fire that comes. We will help them jump over every hurdle and every obstacle. And then when it's time to resell or rebuy,
You don't get that phone call.
well, a lot of people, because there's so many people in the real estate business, they'll go with whoever they like, which is great because it is a relationship business.
It is.
But we have, a part of the job is staying in front of those clients to make sure that they are repeat clients.
Sure.
And in my mind, like, you kill it every time I come in the office. You handle whatever I need. You go above and beyond. So just because someone's in my circle and I know
Sure.
somebody doesn't mean just because I like them, I'm going to do business with them. I care about what kind of business they do. So I felt like in the beginning, if I do a good enough job, everyone's going to be a repeat client, which, don't get me wrong, most of my clients are repeat,
Sure.
but then you still see those few that sold a house with someone else and you never got that call. And it's like, that's because they were, playing pickleball together or doing this. But was that the best person for the job?
That's it.
And so what I think separates, to go back to that question, the top agents from everyone else, because I'm not sure if you know, but only about 6% of the agents in our market are actually doing any kind of volume.
Really?
Out of
I did
100.
not know that.
That's a very low number.
It is.
Most agents sell, 12 homes a year. That's an average, 12 homes a year, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But when you only
We're trying to encourage that next level, right? So that's what we're trying to get to.
But if you only sell, a very few homes a year, or you only do transactions a couple times a year, then you're not very knowledgeable about what the market's doing. You have to be out there every day,
Sure.
studying the market and knowing the market, and then going back to people and feeling comfortable advising them. A lot of agents also go in and they're just like, "Oh, you want to list your house for this? Okay, let me
Perfect.
write up the paperwork."
Yeah,
They're
I know how
just,
to do the paperwork.
yeah, they're just filling in the blanks, but they're not advising. That would be like me coming in here and telling you what I needed to do on my taxes.
Yeah.
You're the professional.
Right. Let me advise you, because I've done the work behind the scenes, so that when you do come sit in my chair, you feel, number one, at ease that I know what I'm talking about. But secondly, I do know what I'm talking about because I've taken the time to learn it.
Right. So when I sit down with people, it's not always going to be the right fit. Sometimes I don't take on clients, or
Yeah.
sometimes they choose to go another route because another agent offered to list their house for more.
Sure.
But I would rather go in, give them real numbers, give them real data, do my homework up front, and say, this is truly, this is the true numbers, and be just completely blunt with them.
Well, you know you can deliver on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because when I put my sign in a yard, I'm not just doing it to get have my sign in the yard.
Correct.
Like my goal is to get that house under contract and to meet your goal. And if I know from the jump, I'm never going to meet your goal because your expectations are up here and realistically, this is what your home's worth.
We might as well not do business together.
Exactly.
100%. And I think that's a hard thing to do. Just speaking from my personal experience, I've struggled from day one turning business away for that reason. Just because it's like, well, I can figure out a way to make it happen. And it ends up causing more problems on the back end. And it may be just my business doesn't do the type of service that this one client needs. But in my mind, I'm like, well, I'll just make it work. It causes more problems on the back end because I'm trying to make sure that my business continue to grow. You don't want to ever, my opinion, at one point tell people no, because you always want to be getting as much business as you can. But as time goes on, you realize, am I going to be able to serve this client the proper way? And if that answer is yes, then I'll outperform everyone else. But there's in our industry, there's certain things that people are looking for from an investment standpoint that I just don't align with, or that's not my philosophy. So I'll just tell them we're probably not a good fit. Or from a tax and accounting standpoint, they want us to do X, Y, Z, where my practice only does X instead of the Y and the Z. So I've learned now over time, I'm better off just telling them, hey, we're probably not the best fit for you. I appreciate you thinking of us, but it's going to cause less problems down the road. Yep. And I think that's a growth thing that I really struggled with, but have just kind of like recently been able to start doing. And it's not just because we're uber successful. It's just you start to realize, like you said, if the expectation's here but reality's here, we don't need to do business together because then we're just going to have friction down the road.
Right.
And it causes more problems than it does good.
And there has to be trust because if it's a relationship business, then there has to be a level of trust. Yep. And if you don't trust that I did my homework and I'm telling you that we cannot get this home to appraise for more than this because there's no comps out there that supports it, and you still don't trust that, then if we don't have that trust, then there's no sense of moving forward in business. So I would definitely tell new agents or someone coming up in any business, any profession, if they're trying to go out and start their own business and they want to level up, you have to make sure that you're doing business with people that you want to do business with.
I like that.
You don't. All business is not good business.
That's a great thing to hit on because that's a fact. And like I said, just to my own detriment, I've just early on, not struggling, but just trying to get as much going in the pipeline as I can. I'm like, I'll take anything, right? And that causes you more problems than it does good.
Yeah.
With our current real estate environment, a lot of people have become real estate experts over the last couple of years, right? With COVID and interest rate risk and blah, 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 blah. What do you think is, from the Bowling Green market, which I do think, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, the Bowling Green market is a hair different than like the national market. I feel like it's a little bit more insulated as far as some of the volatility with stuff that you see like on national news. What do you think is kind of the short-term future for real estate in our market? Because I see, from my perspective, just as an investor, like the single-family homes and the lower price point homes are sitting longer than they were, even 18 months ago. What do you think is the short term and then like kind of long term outlook for real estate in our market?
So I know our market's going to continue to be strong because we have so much economic growth. And when you study strong markets, the strongest markets are always where there's economic growth. So Bowling Green is doing a great job of keeping jobs coming in. We're a college town. There's a lot of people that, want to stay here after they graduate. So economically, I feel like Bowling Green is secure and we are a little more insulated because we have so many job opportunities. And we're such a short distance from Nashville. So not just economic growth, but location-wise.
Yeah. Proximity to Nashville probably helps.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah. So, I'm very optimistic about the market, short-term and long-term. I feel like the reason we're seeing more houses sit is because people were expecting rates to drop and they haven't. I think that sticker shock is going to wear off to where people are understanding, hey, we're not going back to 3% rates. Stop holding your breath. These are still great rates because, for all the people who are renting, you're paying 100% interest and you're worried about a 6% or a 7% rate. You're still
doesn't quite make sense financially, right?
Right. So that's one way that I really feel like I'm successful is I sit down with each person and I look at what their goals are. I ask them what they're trying to achieve, and then I bring real information to them. Nice. So, okay, you're stressed out about a 7% interest rate, and right now you're paying 100%, or even someone who has a low rate and they don't know if they should sell because that rate is so low, but that house is not serving them, and they want to wait until maybe houses are worth more. Well, when you get more for yours, you're going
to pay more for the next one, right?
Exactly. So breaking those numbers down and showing them real true data, I think puts people at ease, just like when you do that and say, hey, the market can look scary right now, but look, history shows.
Historically speaking, everything's cyclical, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, the rates are still at historically lower rates than they have been in the past. So they're not at the lowest, obviously, because do you think from an interest rate standpoint, and I always tell people my personal opinion, I don't think I'll see a 3% rate on a home probably in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Is that a stretch, or do you agree with that? What do you think?
Lifetime's a long time. I don't know. Crazy
Probably
things
short
happen.
for me, but
yeah.
that's okay.
No, yeah, I got this. So I think that's a thing of the past.
Yeah,
I think everything's going to level out, around the fives,
Yeah.
and that's going to be your new really
Norm.
great rate.
Yeah.
I think it would take something very catastrophic happening for rates to ever go that low, and then we have a bigger problem on our hands.
I would agree there too, because I think the rates getting to where they were during the whole COVID thing caused more problems than it did good.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of it in my industry too, both on the investment side and the tax side. Whereas more people are in tune to these types of things because they're pushed so much in headlines.
Yeah.
Interest rates are always talked about now. The stock market's always talked about now, and the stock market's, in my opinion, more politically driven than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody will say something that the markets just react to in a negative way. There was a couple weeks ago, in the middle of the day, there was a rumor about some type of economic something or other, and the market shot up like 4,000 points or something silly like that. I don't know the exact number, so don't hold me to that. But it went up 2 or 3% like within 10 minutes. And then they realized that that was a rumor and that was not the actual fact, and the market sank like 4,000 points or whatever the number was, went back negative in a matter of minutes. And so for me, like, it's become a little bit harder to kind of like dig those roots in with clients because they see so many headlines, right? And all they're looking at is, well, this article said this interest rate is going to be this. So do you see a lot of hesitancy with people saying, well, I think rates are going to come down to a certain point, so I'm going to wait till then? Is that common?
Yeah, it's very common, and that's a conversation that I have to be prepared to have.
So how do you combat that?
Okay, so you're telling me that you want to wait until rates come down to purchase a home.
Right.
Okay, well, when rates come down, then we have more buyers, and it's a supply and demand thing.
Of course.
So if we have
More demand,
right,
price goes up, right?
Right. So if we have more buyers, then you have more competition to get this house. And we already have a lack of inventory. There's a nationwide lack of inventory that they're probably not going to be able to catch up with, for a very long time.
Doesn't seem like it.
Right. So if there's lack of inventory and now we have more buyers, then that drives the price of the homes up. So when rates come down, the prices of houses always increase. So you're going to save some money on that rate, but now you're paying more for the house. And so, I know it sounds really corny, but I say marry the house, date the rate.
Of course.
And, everyone says that, but it's true. If you find a house you love at a price that
you can stomach,
that the market is, saying is a good price.
Sure.
If we look at the data, not what your, 80-year-old grandpa says
right,
the house is worth, but like true numbers on what the house is worth, and it makes sense, then go ahead and buy it, and you can refinance rates or figure that out later.
I completely agree with that.
Because they're not going to let you borrow money that you can't afford. The debt to income has to be lined up.
Right.
Like all the math is there. So
you encourage them, if the deal is right for them and the market says it's a good buy on the home, go ahead and do it, and we can refinance
because
later.
you're never going to buy real estate at the top of the market. You're only going to buy at the top of the market right now. The market's going to continue to rise.
And that's why I think in a market like Bowling Green, people are safe continuing to buy homes.
Oh, for sure.
Because like obviously from the COVID thing, like your numbers jumped 15, 20, 25%, whatever the number is on your home value, but that's not normal, right? And so I would assume that, people in the Bowling Green surrounding area are going to be able to see your consistent multiple percent growth on your home's value year over year. Mm-hmm. So that's to your point, like you're not buying at the top of the market, you're buying at the top of the market right now.
Yeah.
I would completely agree with that.
Yeah. And, the increase in the market is around 4% a year. And the news, the media, they get more clicks, they get more views if they're negative.
Of course.
And that's one reason why I'm stepping out, because I'm stepping all the way out of my shell to be doing podcasts
I love it.
And videos and talking to people.
You need to, because people need to hear from you.
Yeah.
Like someone that cares, that knows and has the experience and like does the homework, people need to hear from you.
That's right. And so that's why I've been willing to focus on that growth, even though it's out of my comfort zone, is because people need to hear from real local experts on what the market is truly doing, not this fake news. I see these headlines and half the time they're not even accurate.
It just makes you want to bang your head against the wall.
Yeah.
People will call me and ask me the most off-the-wall questions like, hey, I heard I could write off my my dog on my tax return. Is that possible? And I'm like, no. They read some article somewhere about something or other with some keyhole situation, and it's like, can I do that? No. This makes no sense.
Fake news. Yeah.
All the time.
Fake news.
So what is next for Nikki Adams? What do you think down the road? What are you looking towards for yourself? What do you have, future plans for yourself that you want to share, and goals for yourself, and kind of what's not necessarily the next thing, because you're going to continue to dig in and be a local expert in our market and all that stuff. And I'm excited to see that journey continue to unfold. But what do you have kind of in your crosshairs, both short term and long term, that you'd like to share?
So short term, I'm in some growing pains right now as the business grows.
Yep, I feel that.
I want to do well in every arena of my life, but it feels like when you're going really hard in one arena, the other
something lacks, right?
Yeah, something lacks. So I don't, I do have a family, a growing family. We've got 3 girls now, and they're all at really fun ages. Yeah. And I have a husband, and we love to travel. So I don't want to put that on the back burner while I'm just hustling to grow the business.
Sure.
I did that in the first couple years.
Yep.
And around COVID time, I could feel that burnout was real. And I never thought that I could get burnout because I have this drive.
And you love what you do.
And I love what I do.
Sure.
But I realized I had to set boundaries, and I had to say, okay, I'm not, I'm a professional. I'm not taking calls at 8 p.m. That's family time.
Because you don't have to anymore.
I don't have to, and no one has to really. And I would, if I could go over, I would start out setting those boundaries, because as a professional, I set my business hours, and they can be reasonable business hours. As long as I'm hustling from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., there's no reason why anything after that couldn't be followed up with the next morning.
Boy, you're preaching to me right now too, because I tell the guys in my office too, like, hey, as you're growing your business, set those parameters now.
Right.
Because what I've done is just like you. There's been times where I've set unrealistic expectations, and now where you get to unrealistic expectations for clients. Mm-hmm. So now when you get to a certain point and you're starting to set those boundaries, you feel a little bit of a pushback, because you're like, well, you always answered my call on Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock, even though your office hours are Monday through Friday. Yep. So like, what's changed? You know what I mean? So that's a hard thing to do, and that's great advice for anybody that is starting out, regardless of what industry you're in. Set the expectations that now with your people that you want to have in 10 years. Yeah. Because it's really, really hard, and I'm experiencing that too, is trying to scale back volume and just kind of focusing on quality of different things that I'm doing. And that's a hard conversation to have, and it's a hard thing to press back on when you're so used to doing it another way. So that's great advice to me too. So
yeah, and that leverage piece, which I'm very proud of you on, because you have leveraged out your business as well. But what that allows you to do is still provide that quality customer service and not lose yourself, because you have to take care of yourself first, or you can't pour from an empty cup. That's so for me, I need my evenings with my family. Yep. I need my family time. I need my vacation time. I don't feel guilty for taking off anymore.
And you should.
I don't answer my phone when I'm on vacation.
Good for you.
And again, we're in an easy entry field. So some people will say, well, I called and you didn't answer, so I went on to this person. Well, if you wanted to give up working with a market expert to go get into that house today, and you couldn't wait till tomorrow for that, then you get what you get.
That's it. And it probably wasn't the best fit for us anyways, right? Going back to our conversation earlier.
Yeah, because that's going to be that client that is impulsive and doesn't want to do things by a process. And when you start just doing things on the spur of the moment just to keep people happy, that's when I feel like you don't get that quality service.
Completely agree. And then that hurts you long term more than it helps you in the short term even.
Yeah.
Closing thoughts, final thoughts. What would you say to the people at home here? Like, if you could give them one message from your story, your career path to this point, to just encourage them in whatever it is that they're doing, what would that be?
I would say be consistent, make a plan, don't just wing it. Yeah, you have to fake it till you make it to a certain extent.
Sure.
But if you start that business model with setting clear diameters of this is what I want to accomplish, and then set steps for how to reach those goals, break down any big goal into smaller goals, and then just attack that, then you'll be successful no matter what it is, what profession it is. I think that would carry over to any profession. And then just make sure, like we talked about, set those boundaries up front, so you're not having to go back and try to improve or fix the behaviors that you've taught or you've allowed.
You did to yourself.
You did it to yourself.
Yeah.
So that way you are coming up and showing up as the best version of yourself. And then I think also when it comes to success in business, you can only be as successful in your business as you are in your personal life. So you really have to focus on your health. You have to focus on your family, your finances, whatever those buckets are that are important to you. You have to really pour into those as well, and not just put those on the back burner for your business.
I absolutely love that. That's great advice. Hope you guys learned something today. You can follow Nikki Adams on Facebook and Instagram. Just go search her name up. real estate expert here in the Bowling Green market, and just a wonderful human, as you can tell, and a great business person, as you can really tell as well. So I hope you guys learned something today, and I hope you can take something, one little nugget or two that you can apply to your life and your business and really help you. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
The marathon continues. Nipsey.
That's right. RIP.